Gorgeous day here in Fort Lauderdale-on-Ice, otherwise known as Toronto. Welcome back to the video blog, of course. My name is Adam Daniel Mezei. I'm your PMD for hire. That means producer of marketing and distribution. I do independent film, marketing and distribution. I do it all day. If you need some help with yours, for your independent film or doc, please get in touch with me. So, as I've said many times on this video blog, it's now over 4 months that I've been back in Canada from Europe. It's 4 months of an interesting cultural re-entry after a 5-year absence. And it's not like I had ever divorced myself from the situation for too long, or that I hadn't visited the country in the interim, or that I wasn't in touch with people from this country. But it's kind of interesting because in Europe, with a completely different lifestyle, given the fact that, there I was living, I guess you could say for the most part, alone. Naturally, there were friends and significant others, but as, for the most part, outside of the normal family situation, here in Toronto, of course, where my family lives, it's an opportunity to encounter them on a daily basis, sometimes more than a daily basis, if you know what I mean. So, I was reading through this book recently, Foreign Devils in the Flowery Kingdom, which is by Carl Crow. Carl Crow was that famous journalist and entrepreneur, advertising man in the early and interwar years of Shanghai. This is what he looks like, by the way, if you've never seen Carl Crow before. And he's from Missouri in the States. In this book, he's talking about how the international settlement and the French concession, the two international communities, what was known as the extrality or extraterritoriality, where foreigners could live in Shanghai and were basically responsible or beholden to their own governments and not to the Chinese authorities. He's talking about how, the Shanghai international or expat community was so small that the problems that these people had paled in comparison to the problems that they had, let's say, when they were living in their respective countries, whether it was primarily Great Britain and the United States. Of course, there were smatterings of Portuguese and Spanish and Italians and other nationalities, White Russians that had absconded from Russia and such. And so he talks about how they ended up finding problems that they didn't know that they had, being human nature looking for problems where there are necessarily none, and how the challenges that were encountering the international community of Shanghai were not really large in comparison to the problems that he had when he was living in the States and in other places, but invariably they ended up finding problems for themselves where no problems were had. I notice here, 4 months being back in Canada, that it's like I'm made to discuss or encounter situations that I really didn't have anything to do with when I was living in Europe. It's kind of funny, the things that I find people getting stressed out about. And sometimes I'll notice myself getting a little bit bent out of shape about it, and then I step back from the situation for just a moment. I kind of just, again, I extract myself from the situation, and I go to myself, wait a second here, it's not exactly something where the stakes are so high. You know what I mean? I'd say to myself something like, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, it's just a game, really, like whatever people are getting that upset about. And I find that here, coming back to the city where my family lives, people are creating problems all the time from these, like, amalgam of details that mean nothing in isolation and actually mean nothing in combination. And then, like, the stress levels begin to rise, and the tones begin to rise, and the speech becomes sped up, and, situations, the phone calls start to, like, fly back and forth, and you start wondering to yourself and going, my goodness, this is human nature in a nutshell, humanity in a nutshell. Human beings demand and require conflict to some degree in their DNA, in their blueprint, in their genetic blueprint. They require conflict. The absence of conflict somehow denotes the absence of interest. It's like a screenplay. If you don't have that thing rife with conflict, it's not a story that anybody necessarily wants to watch or pay attention to. And I find it amazing, just like Carl Crow in Foreign Devils in the Flowery Kingdom, just like Carl Crow discovered that there were problems in Shanghai that he didn't necessarily think were problems in the rest of the world, but how the people in Shanghai, that were known as the Shanghailanders at the time, felt that these things were like the most monumental, groundbreaking dilemmas of the century, of their time. I find that, even here, it's kind of amusing that people get so bent out of shape by stuff. I find myself occasionally getting, as I said, just a little stressed out by stuff that I don't really think I need to get stressed out about. And I step out of the situation and I go, wait a second here. Hold on. It's not something that I should get stressed out about. I didn't have this stress a few months ago. I had other issues, of course, that I was dealing with, but those were unique to the situation at hand. I guess, in a general sense, now speaking more profoundly, Every place has its own set of unique problems. Although again, I don't want to take any spin or any curve off of this pitch that I'm throwing to you today from the mound here as I stand here on my own 2 feet, or actually sitting down. I don't want to take any spin off of this pitch, and that being that what I see people going through over here, it's like a giggle fest. It's a mumble fest, and it's a giggle fest, and it's complete and utter nonsense. Honestly, you step out of it and you go, what the hell are you guys on about? What the hell is so worthwhile about the situation to be up in arms about? Of course, to them, it's not a problem. But then you can just feel the situation has or is pregnant with some kind of a stressful bud, some kind of a stressful germ, and you just wonder, where did that come from? And just like Karl Crow back in Shanghai of the interwar period, he was probably wondering to himself, what the hell is wrong with this society? So, again, just another observation in the interminable series of observations over 4 months back here at Fort Lauderdale on ice. It's like Fort Lauderdale, but there's a lot of ice. The same people live here doing the same funny things. Wishing you, as I always do, the very best of things.